What's up, dudes? What's up, guys? Sorry, I didn't have my headphones plugged in. Yeah, Nick just fucking totally bailed on the stream tonight, so. I mean, I had a few things I was going to talk about. And, like, I was thinking, well, maybe I should just push it off for the weekend, but to be honest, nobody fucking watches. It's like, trading in Friday for a Saturday stream or a Sunday stream is fucking stupid. You don't get nearly as many viewers. So. Can y'all hear? Okay, good. Yeah, for some reason, still doing that shit with the other mic. Anyway, I was like I stumbled across this chick, this Japanese chick. You could tell she's Japanese, but I stumbled across her channel. This chick is like absolutely hilarious. Check this shit out. There's the she does. It's called Gooner, the Science of Female Gooners. I guess she's a female gooner from what she says. Apparently, she's yeah, I guess thought I had it pulled up. Science of Female Goon.
Female gooner literature is no matter science of female gooning, where I briefly mentioned female gooner literature. I figured I'd make this video to break down exactly.
I don't think I saw this one yet. This is the one I was.
Hello, chat. I have a very
Bro, tell me that chick is not a gorgeous Japanese chick. Like, whoa, man, seriously. Like, in
female
this
gooner literature is no matter what.
She's got a little bit of a vulgar vocabulary. She likes to curse a lot, but like all the rings and the little hand, the perfect little hands with her little nails done. You know what? I'd like to see her in some geisha girl makeup or in just a geisha girl outfit. Man, I'd take her up through there something decent. I'd wear her out, man. She's cute though. Like, seriously. And she has the Japanese look about her. She doesn't look Chinese. She looks Japanese. And it's like, is she South Korean or Japanese? But
Hello,
chat. I actually think she's just straight up Japanese because they're the only ones that are that white.
Very important topic to discuss today, and that is the topic of female gooning.
Yo, what up, Alex?
And I say this because I've noticed that my YouTube metrics are not skewing more female. They're actually skewing more male, which is incredibly annoying, but whatever. I digress. It's actually great because now I get to educate my male audience on the art of female gooning, because for some reason the thought is so foreign to my male audience that they don't even believe that female gooning is real, but it is real. It is inherently different from male gooning. They're two very different, they're two separate ideologies, right? It's like existentialism versus absurdism, right? Same root cause, which is horniness, but two different approaches to the same methodology, right? So,
horniness.
To begin to explain female gooning, it is important to first understand female anatomy, which then comes with hormones. So, male gooning is consistent. Male hormonal cycles are consistent, right? Men are just pretty simple creatures. They're pretty basic. You feel like gooning, you goon. That's pretty much it. The female gooning cycle is entirely contingent on what part of the hormone cycle that you're at.
If you're ovulating, so like, no shit.
For example, right? Like, I'm not gonna say me myself personally, but like,
and it's funny because chicks will reach out to me, and I already know they're ovulating. I already know. As soon as they reach out, I'm like, oh, that time of the month, gentlemen. I get all excited, giddy.
I don't know if you're like, okay, let me just explain here, because I'm guessing that you all have no baseline understanding of female anatomy. So the female hormone cycle lasts roughly like a month, right? And so you have your period. I know, ew, oh my god, disgusting. Shut the fuck up. Okay, so that lasts probably a week, right? Actually, so that the period itself.
You know what I think is grosser than what she's talking about? The discharge. Fuck, that shit is raunchy, bro. Ugh, I can't.
Personally, not that bad. Not that bad. But okay.
In their pants.
Oh, so your period starts. That's 1 week. The next week, another week goes by, right? You're off your period, and it's all building up towards ovulation, which is
Yep.
when the female gooning cycle peaks, right? So like when you're ovulating, that's when you're gooning, I don't know, like 4 to 10 times a day. Like you're gooning like crazy during the ovulation portion, and then like it kind of declines, and then the week before your period happens. So
Listen up, Walker. This is good. This is good stuff to know, man. Believe me, bro. When you become a man, this is like this key, the secret.
So 4 weeks total, right? The first week is your period. The second week is leading up to the gooning cycle. So you're gooning more and more every day, leading up to the ovulation. And then ovulation, you're gooning like crazy. And then the week after that, you're still gooning. And then the week after that, you're a fucking bitch. Life sucks, bro. You feel like the walls are caving in.
Oh,
You feel like, why am I alive? Like it's like genuinely
feel like a victim.
the week before your period, it's like what the Roman Empire is to men. Like genuinely, it's all encompassing. You feel dreadful. You want to fucking eat everything. You look in the mirror, you're like, damn, that's a fat ugly bitch. Your skin's breaking out, your life sucks. It feels like no one will ever love you. And then your period comes and you're good. You're good. You're regulated again. And then you have 2 weeks of like crazy goonerism. And then you go back to being a bitch again, right? So it's like that's kind of like in layman's terms, that is how the female hormonal cycle works.
Kind of like
But it
how she
actually
broke it
works
down,
pretty effectively because women are good at regulating their emotions because this hormone cycle exists and you were prepared
That
for it.
sucks.
You're prepared to be a bitch. You're prepared to eat everything in sight and then fucking look in the mirror and hate yourself. And then you're prepared to have your period and then you're prepared to goon again. And it's great because like you have this like cycle that basically regulates your emotions for you, which is why women don't commit a lot of violent crime. They don't be out here killing people. You get what I'm
They'd
saying?
be out here
And
doing
so
other shit.
it's pretty effective. Now, to get into the logistics of female gooning, which is a completely different bucket,
They
right?
just use
It's
book.
not the same as men.
It's literature.
Men watch gooner material, usually in the form of video, usually in the form of the internet, and that's how they goon. Women don't goon to
This is ridiculous. Like, why did they come up with this stupid name, gooning? It's literally just typical masturbate. I mean, you know, that's it. I don't get why they had to come up with this stupid new word. That's just Gen Z's deal. They have to have new little terms for every single thing they think about.
things that
All
they
just
can directly
rehashes.
see in front of them, right? Women goon to ideas. Women goon to concepts of a plan. That's what women goon to. So, for example, I'll give you an example, right? I would say,
idea.
I would argue, one would argue, and one is me, that most women don't even goon to video. And I'm not gonna say all women. There are and maybe they goon to everything, right? Maybe they goon to this and the next thing I'm about to mention. I would say a good portion of women goon to books. It's not even video. It's not even I'm not even fucking kidding. I'm not shitting you.
My
And
mom
okay,
used to
and if
read
men
the old ones that were like they had a picture of like some, you know, what's his name? I can't believe it's Novara. What the hell was his name? Fabio. They all had Fabio on the front of the motherfuckers, you know, but they weren't as explicit and they didn't put disgusting stuff in them though, like stuff she probably reads.
understood what female gooner book material says, they would be absolutely blown out of the fucking water. I've read some female
Gross.
female gooner literature that is so incredibly disgusting, that is so decrepit and from fucking hell that I had to like wash my eyes after reading the shit. You know, after I goon
I
naturally
like
because
this
it's
girl,
actually
man.
fire. But
She's
like
fucking funny.
but my thing is it's like I think this is the fundamental difference between female and male goonerism. It's not some like dopamine hit you chase by like watching, I don't know, watching these people and you form like weird attachments to these people that you're watching in like video
She
and
doesn't
gooner
even know what
video.
she's talking about.
It's more so like you're actually reading the gooner material and you're envisioning whoever the fuck you want in your head.
Sure.
And so like really, I think the core difference is women goon to shit that isn't even like either way, the shit you're gooning to isn't real, right? But with women, it's
In
slightly
their
more
head.
rooted in reality because like you can envision whoever the fuck you want doing the
She sounds like does she imagine that men can't do that as well? I don't get it.
stinky, nasty gooner literature material behavior, right? And so I think that this is like the core fundamental difference between male and female gooning, right? It's not only the hormone cycle, right? It's like it spikes and then it lessens or whatever the fuck. I feel like men just I don't know. I feel like I don't know what it's like to be a man, but I'm imagining you wake up and you're just like, I feel like gooning today, and you just goon, right? It's not like that. It's not like that.
No, it isn't
As a
like that.
woman, you're like, maybe there's like a 1 week period where you're like, I'm disgusting, and then there's a 1 week period where you're like, gooning isn't even an option, you know? And then there's a 2 week period where you're like, goon, 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 goon. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, let me read these gooner books real quick. Like it's like
This
it's
chick
different.
is
It's different.
fucking funny,
And
bro.
also, like, I feel like men
Like she's so honest, matter of fact about it. Like no shame. Like good for her, man. She's fucking funny, bro. Yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, you're right. I don't, and most certainly not to, to, like, not to this stuff. No, hell no. Or
I've noticed or I've read, I've heard the word
I
around
was
the
just
street.
saying. I said when I started the thing, I just thought she's really funny, and she's also hot as fuck. So very, very, very good looking for a Asian. I mean, I've been with it. I've been with good looking Asians, but I actually think she's quite striking, like Japanese.
It is.
But
Oh my
cool
god, my hair is
attitude
pissing
though.
me off. Anyways, okay. Word around the street is men goon to pictures, not possible. Maybe, and I'm not saying it's never possible. There are probably women who have gooned to photos, right? But personally, I don't know one person who's ever gooned to a
She's
photo.
really
I just
smart
don't even
too.
think I
You
don't
can
even think
tell.
that's remotely possible. But like, you know, this creates a fundamental divide because as a woman, you don't even have to read the book for real. You can just go straight off the dome, bro. You could close your eyes off the dome goon. And like I just feel like for a lot of men that's not really possible. You know, like they got to look at what's like right in front of them. Like it's not a right in front of you thing. It's like a gooning is a very buildable thing. It's an imaginative thing, and
I
that's
don't
why
get
like it's
this
like
gooning term. It's ridiculous.
sometimes you have to think about gooning all day, and then the gooning hits harder from thinking about gooning all day.
Well,
With
duh.
a man, you're like, I'm thinking about gooning, I gotta go do that shit right now. Like I feel like it's more impulsive, right? It's more like
No.
I feel like I need a goon circle right now so
She's
that I can
never
take care of
ever
the
asked anybody
goonerism that's
before,
lingering on in my
obviously.
head. With women, it's like you're kind of like, let me sit on the gooning idea for a little bit,
Yeah.
and then when I inevitably goon, the gooning will be better because I thought about the gooning.
Well, no
Does that make
shit.
sense?
It's
Like it's
called
like
delaying
it's not
gratification.
clocking. It's not clocking. Anyways, since I know that my audience is predominantly male, it's like I feel like you guys need a better understanding of the female psyche. This is a very valuable piece of philosophical advice I'm giving you.
387. Man, she's
I'm
been
telling
going
you,
viral. She has 21,000 subs. She got 387,000 views on this in 9 days with 20,000 subscribers. That's fucking incredible.
I'm telling you, this is how the shit works. If you don't believe me, you can not believe me. But also like you don't know shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm living in the female gooner experience. So maybe you should take advice from a goonette. Anyways, that's pretty much it.
She's quite smart, quite intelligent, well spoken too. My life easier as a woman. Huh. Yeah, Nick, he's not doing a show tonight. Yeah, I gotta change the name of the stream. Something I was looking at earlier. Yeah, here.
Despite the impression places like OnlyFans
I
might
was trying
give,
to
So
get
I'm
this.
the girl that's out with 1,057 men.
in real life, young adults are having less
Was
sex
trying to
than ever.
paraphrase this video yesterday, and I just butchered the shit out of it.
How is that even possible in a
Not very long.
post-sexual revolution
Really
society? As
interesting.
a grad school psychology student, I like to spend my time in the library reading old literature, and I was surprised to find that an astonishingly underrated thinker and psychologist, Rollo May, managed to predict this exact trend back in the 60s. He outlined the three paradoxes of freedom that I want to present here and how they ended up causing young adults to abandon sex entirely. Back in Victorian times, when the denial of sexual drives and impulses was the mode and one would not talk about sex in polite company, an aura of sanctifying repulsiveness surrounded the whole topic. Males and females dealt with each other as though neither possessed sexual organs. But then, in the 1920s, a radical change occurred. The belief became a militant dogma that the opposite of repression, namely things like sex education and freedom of expression, would have good effects on health and thus constituted the only stand for the enlightened person. In an amazingly short period of time, we went from acting as though sex did not exist to being openly obsessed with it. This change was dramatically seen in therapists' offices. In contrast to repressed Freud-era patients, people would come in for help for the exact opposite. A great deal of activity, a great deal of talk about sex, but people would complain about a lack of feeling or passion. The curious thing was how little most seemed to be enjoying this emancipation. The first paradox is that the Enlightenment has not solved the sexual problems in our culture. To be sure, there are important positive results from the new Enlightenment, chiefly in the increased personal freedom. In fact, most external problems are eased. Contraception, the information on technique, and let's not forget the normalization of discussing sexual life and seeking to improve it without guilt. External social anxiety and guilt have lessened, at least compared to Victorian times, and dull would be the man who did not rejoice in this. But internal anxiety and guilt have increased. In some ways, these are more morbid, harder to handle, and impose a heavier burden on the individual. The question shifted from simply would you or would you not go to bed with someone, but can or can't you in a performance sense. The challenge shifted to personal adequacy. And though we might agree that the second question places the problem of sexual decision more where it should be, we cannot overlook the fact that the first question is way easier for the person to handle. The fear has now shifted to not being good at lovemaking or not being good enough for a second, third, fourth time. In Victorian times, you could justifiably blame society's strict mores and preserve your own self-esteem by telling yourself that what you did or didn't do was society's fault and not yours. But when the question is simply how can you perform, your own self-esteem and adequacy are immediately called into question, and the whole weight of the encounter is shifted inward to how can you meet the test. Many adolescents, understandably anxious about their sexual freedom, repress this anxiety because one should like freedom and compensate for that increased anxiety due to repression by attacking parental figures and asking them for more freedom. What we did not see in our short-sighted liberalism is that throwing a person out into an unbounded and empty sea of free choices does not in itself constitute freedom, but is more apt for inner conflict. The second paradox is that the new emphasis on technique in sex backfires. There seems to be an inverse relationship between the number of sex podcasts out there and the amount of passion experienced by the persons involved. Now, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with technique as such, but the emphasis on technique beyond a certain point makes for a mechanistic attitude and goes hand in hand with feelings like loneliness, alienation, and depersonalization. All of these feelings, by the way, rampant in our society. The lover becomes superseded by the computer and its modern efficiency. It is not surprising then, in this preoccupation with technique, that the question most commonly asked is not whether there was passion of meaning, but how well did I perform? We seem to be living in an age of tyranny of the orgasm.
Like straight up, I absolutely can relate to this, and Mealy's right about it. Sure.
Why do we have to try so hard? What abyss of self-doubt, what inner void of loneliness are we trying to cover up by this big concern with grandiose effects? When we cut through all the noise about roles and performance, what's left is how amazingly important the sheer fact of meaningful intimacy in a relationship is. The meeting, the growing of closeness with the excitement of not knowing where it leads, the assertion of the self and the giving of the self. Does it really need to be reminded that all of these are what makes a sexual encounter memorable? Nowadays, we seem to be more wary of the tenderness that comes with the psychological and spiritual nakedness happiness than with the physical one in intimate relationships. The third and biggest paradox is that our highly vaunted sexual freedom has turned out to be a new form of Puritanism. We can define this new Puritanism as consisting of three elements: an alienation from the body, a separation of reason from emotion, and an attitude towards the body as a machine. In our new Puritanism, bad health is equated with sin. Sin used to mean not giving in to one's desires, but it now means not having full sexual expression. Our contemporary Puritan holds that it is immoral not to express your libido. For example, a woman used to feel guilty if she went to bed prior to marriage. She now feels vaguely guilty if after a certain number of dates she refrains. The Victorian person sought to have love without falling into sex. The modern person seeks to have sex without falling into love. Many of us are deathly afraid of our passions unless they're kept under leash. Well, the theory of total expression is the modern leash. This can be seen in the depersonalization of language. Instead of going to bed, we get laid. Instead of making love, we just have sex. And so on until the only word left is fuck, entirely forgetting that these different words refer to different kinds of human experience. With all that we have noted, it is no wonder that there is a diminution of feeling and that passion has lessened almost to a vanishing
I could
point.
relate, as in when I was younger, I went through a little bit what he's talking about, like anxiety and shit, you know. Get over it, of course, but I just, there's definitely, this whole everything after the post-sexual revolution, it's definitely toxic, it's not the way to be doing it. Eventually, things will change back, I'm sure, but in the meantime, we're stuck with it.
This diminution of feeling often takes the form in a kind of anesthesia, where the people involved can perform the mechanical aspects of sex very well, but nothing else. And this is so common that we're quite used to statements like, we had sex, but I didn't feel anything. Young people can no longer get a bootlegged feeling of personal identity out of revolting against sex because there's barely anything left to revolt against. And someone like Bonnie Blue is an extreme example of how far the line is. Those who are not that far out have only one thing left to realistically revolt against, and that is sex and eventually identity itself. And there we go. The problem has come full circle since Victorian times, and we are back to square one, unable to deal with the problem of sex. This is another and surely least constructive aspect of the new
He said
Puritanism.
something that was kind of poignant, I thought, where he said, in Victorian times, people sought love without sex. Like they sought love rather than without sex. That was like the high, and I would say it's a high-minded, or a more enlightened way of living, to be honest. Not just giving credence to every little feeling you have and acting on every little feeling. Like, I think there's wisdom in that. They were saying, yeah, people sought love without sex, and nowadays we seek sex without love. It's like, and it's so backwards.
We talked about, it returns finally to a new asceticism. And so, contrary to popular belief, we seem to be not hurtling into a multisexual society, but an asexual one. The real issue underlying this revolution, one that most refuse to face up to, is not what we do with our sexual organs or sexual functions per se, but what happens to man's humanity, to our humane, life-giving qualities. Well, the answer to that question is way beyond the scope of this video. However, if you're interested, Rollo May, in his fascinating book Love and Will, tries to solve this exact question, and most of what I said in this video is taken directly from it. I will leave a link to it in the description if you're interested. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.
I thought Nick was going to come on for sure tonight because he must have posted 50 messages today. I get, apparently he's having it out with Dan Bilzerian, Dan Bilzerian, and a couple of other people. Oh yeah, that what's that chick's name? Amy Dangerfield. Yeah, apparently they were behind that America First convention and I guess he had a falling out with Dan Bilzerian, and now he like I remember that Amy Dangerfield, like she would talk about him, and people would bring her up, and he was cool, you know, he thought she was all right, and then all of a sudden, like, man, he don't like her now at all. And like, I guess I didn't know that you could have three different passports. Dan Bilzerian has three passports. He's a triple citizen. This motherfucker has an American citizenship, an Armenian citizenship, and what's the other one? Kitts and Nevis, Kitts and Nevis, some Caribbean island notorious for offshore banking, and apparently. Yeah, he's been getting like just hammered lately. People have been going in on him. Like, I guess this last week he had a bunch of different articles written about him. One was about, oh, can there be an America first without Nick Fuentes? And yeah, can they build America first without Nick Fuentes? That was the only article. There's he's going at it with a bunch of people right now. It's weird. You know something, like I noticed Megyn Kelly, like he was talking about that Dasha Burns was on Megyn Kelly's show, and Megyn Kelly brought Nick up, and it strikes me, I watched it, and it strikes me that he's being mainstreamed basically, because all of a sudden, you know, Megyn Kelly, she was like, she refused to speak of Nick. She like did it once and then wouldn't do it after that. But apparently, I mean, she spoken up about Israel, but like they're saying the same shit. Like I heard Tucker Carlson on her show talking about Miriam Adelson and the other billionaires, Israeli billionaires. He's saying exactly what Nick is saying. You know, so I get this feeling that he's being somewhat mainstreamed, and that's why he's being attacked. Either it's because they don't like that he's being kind of brought into the mainstream, or because he switched to Democrat, they're trying to, or because he's going to vote Democrat in 26, they're trying to take him out, or trying to reputation savage him. I would say it's one or the other, because he's been getting like just attacked all week. Hmm. Yeah, you may be right, Mackenzie. Although I don't imagine that Nick just made that up. Dan Bilzerian, that, like I said, that was it Kitts and Nevis. That's an island known for offshore bank accounts. Not only that, Dan Bilzerian's father is some fucking Wall Street crook that's been on the run for like 40 years from the SEC for like some kind of a judgment, and he owes like 40 million or something. So he comes from, you know, some fucking crooked white collar family. Nick calls, he says, suddenly this Instagram pimp has arrived in the past year, having been red pilled, quote unquote, red pilled, and is actively mutinying against me while talking about killing Israelis and running a congressional campaign going nowhere. The whole thing stinks. He's right. It does stink. He's running in South Florida. It's like, bro, the shit you're talking about, there's no way they're not going to let your ass into Congress, bro. Get the out of here. So interesting to see this hostile takeover attempt by Amy Dangerfield, some slut from Australia who worked for the J. Adam Sosnick. That guy's a piece of shit. Dan Bilzerian, of all people, as their new frontman / avatar because of his social media following. Dangerfield organizes this AFU conference last week, which Dan video calls into. Later, a New York Times piece drops about an quote-unquote America First movement without Nick Fuentes. And next week, Dangerfield will be campaigning with Dan in Florida. I have half a mind to show up to that and heckle him or something. That'd be badass. Who exactly are these people and where did they come from? I have no knowledge of Dangerfield, an Australian national who is apparently not even a U.S. resident. And I don't think anybody knows what Dan's deal is at all, and maybe nobody does. Dan holds triple citizenship in Kitts and Nevis, a Caribbean island notorious for offshore banking in Armenia. Father is some kind of Wall Street fugitive that the SEC has been trying to collect a $62 million judgment from 40 years. Suddenly, this Instagram. I read that. Simultaneously, Tucker Carlson running some kind of an op against me, telling the New York Times that I am both irrelevant, but also somehow a huge diversion by the elites to distract from the capital gains tax. What an it, Tucker, sometimes. Meanwhile, the Free Press is promoting Nayland Haley. Oh my God. As the avatar of Gen Z. And my Instagram. Oh, that's fucked up. Nick is definitely the avatar. In my Instagram. And they're grooming that Nayland Haley to be some fucking elite. We're going to be ruled by foreigners, and before I'm dead, we'll be getting ruled. We won't have white rulers anymore. Haley is the avatar of Gen Z, and my Instagram clips and super chats are under attack by the Washington Post, the Atlantic, the ADL, and the Canadian CBC. Clearly, we are entering the midterm election cycle, after which the Republican presidential primary will begin. I was warned by multiple people and vaguely threatened that I would be hurting myself if I continued to oppose J.D. Vance. Wow. I was warned by multiple people and vaguely threatened that I would be hurting myself if I continued to oppose Vance. No shit. Oh, wow. No shit. Thank you, Mackenzie. How are you looking out? Damn. Like, that's so cool. Thank you. You're always blessing. Who knows? Is it all connected? Coincidence? We can only speculate, but something strange is going on. You know, I'd have to agree with him too. You know, I would definitely have to agree with him on that. There is something afoot here for sure. You know, something is rotten in Denmark because all this stuff and Nick is at the center, you know, like that just seems sketch to me. You know, all of a sudden it's like a concerted effort across party lines, across industries, across different it's just like, what kind of shit is this? He's getting torpedoed by Dan Bilzerian. Become a member. Welcome. Thank you. Come again. Yeah, he's getting torpedoed by Amy Dangerfield. They're like trying to rug pull the AF out from under him, like, which is and I would say they're the op, like they're trying to discredit or destroy it. And then Tucker with that bullshit New York Times interview, where it almost does seem like that interview. It was almost like half the point of the interview was to discredit Nick and to just like kind of brush him off and minimize him and kind of belittle him. It's just I get why Nick, you know, is suspicious. Like, you know, he was just saying earlier this week, like, bro, why am I fucking under attack? What did I do? Why am I under attack? You know, he's been getting hammered like for like the last week. I mean, he's posted all the situations. And it's been like, remember, it started with Tucker. I guess he did that interview like earlier in the week or last week or something. but it's just like fever pitch. No, it's like a fever pitch now. He's getting like, and he rattled off there at what, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, the ADL, and the Canadian CBC. Like, this is sketch. You know that something is rotten in Denmark because, but also at the same time, like I said, you know, Megyn Kelly, I feel like she's kind of warming up to him because she wouldn't talk about him before. Well, now she asked Dasha Burns about him, you know, and she wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for a reason. Like, she has tried to ignore and avoid talking about him. Maybe some of these attacks have something to do with, you know, him advocating for voting for Democrats. I don't know, but I agree with Nick. I don't like it. Yeah, 2 more messages. And by the way, I predicted all of this at the beginning of the year, January 2026. I had a feeling that after a generational run, there would be another cycle of psyops and suppression. You had to know none of that would go unpunished. Yeah, no, he's right. He's right. They also would not allow the Israel critical movement to coalesce or consolidate in a specific way. It is also totally possible that there is a lot of foolishness causing these problems. But then this ignores how interested the spooks are in our factional politics. Here's a question: if all of these people if all of these people are who they say they are, then why would they dedicate so much energy to knocking me off and in such a subversive way instead of finding a way to get along with the Groypers, or God forbid, empower us? None of it quite adds up. If you can't handle the Groyper War, then you don't deserve the generational run. That was his next message. Steven Crowder's going to be on Tuesday. Fuck. Yeah, Tucker did that bullshit on that New York Times interview. You know, James Fishback, he's going to be in Apopka. That's that slave quarters town I was telling you guys about. He's going to that town on the 13th. I'm thinking about going to it and just, you know, seeing if I can Necrosova. That's a wild name. What is it, like Death Sova? But I'm thinking about going and seeing if I can get, you know, if I can talk to him. Fishback. He's actually going to be in town where I live like 3 times in like the next month. You know, I did hear some shit about him saying to a black guy that he should be lynched, like some weird shit. Like, I guess, and apparently, like, from I heard that he was dating some underage chick or something like that, something or other, and that when somebody questioned him on it, he got all spooked and started like yelled at the guy and said, you know, you should be lynched or some shit. Second, I'm trying to find this. I'm gonna watch this or show you guys. There was some interesting. I was looking at an interesting video with Ryan Grimm about Iran. You know,
welcome to Tech Right Now, the weekly podcast of the American Conservative. I'm Andrew Day, here with my colleague Harry Berger and a very special guest, the reporter Ryan Grimm of Dropsite News, which he co-founded in 2024. Ryan is an author of multiple books, including The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. I see another book that you've authored is behind you, We've Got People. And Ryan, you are the co-host of the show Breaking Point. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
You guys know who Ryan
So we're going to be talking about the war with Iran and related issues. I know I'm going to be asking about these Iranian like information warfare Lego videos that you've done some good reporting on. I think Harry wants to ask about the pressure exerted on Trump by Israel and its American lobby. But first, Ryan, I just want to get
Yeah,
your general
yeah,
sense
you're
of the
right.
state
But
of play right now in the war and diplomatic engagement between the U.S. and Iran. Obviously, we've seen a flurry of activity in the last 24 hours or so. I should say that we're recording Wednesday a little after 3:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. The ceasefire is still holding, I guess, although missiles were flying over the Strait of Hormuz after President Donald Trump on Monday implemented so-called
man,
Project Freedom.
have you guys been paying attention to Trump and what he's all this propaganda? Like, man, he is making us look so bad on the world stage. It's like every day it's another lie, and they've been fucking short selling and insider trading and placing poly market bets like right, just before Trump comes out and announces, "Oh, we have a ceasefire," blah blah blah, and then same thing with that Ehud Barak. That dude's a piece of garbage. He's literally the Israeli. He was a part of an Israeli uh special ops. They call it like room something or something 233. It's one of the name of it is like it's got a very kind of cloak and dagger name. Um, and that guy, it's one of their like, it's basically like MI6. It's not supposed to exist. Well, that guy now, Ehud Barak works at Axios, and he tells all of Trump's lies. He's been helping them manipulate the market, and the dude is a straight up Israeli agent. Straight, like, no joke. That's not just like an attack. No, he is an Israeli agent. Ehud, bro, what a
which is a U.S. operation to guide vessels through the strait. That operation did not seem to be a smashing success.
No,
And last night, Trump announced on Truth Social that he was ending it to give space for diplomacy with Iran. He sounded pretty optimistic about peace talks, although you kind of have to like do an exegesis of his tweet or his truth. And it was a little mixed, but I think optimistic on the whole. This morning, Axios published a report saying that the White House believes the U.S. and Iran are getting close to signing a one-page memorandum to end the war, to create a platform for further talks on key sticking points. But as has happened so many times before, after the Axios report came out, people started to be a little less optimistic. They read past the headline. They actually read the article. Some Iranian officials sort of denied some of the claims that were made there. People realized Iran hasn't actually agreed to anything. Nevertheless, there does seem to be some diplomatic activity. So, Ryan, how would you characterize diplomacy between the U.S. and Iran at this stage? And do you see any credible signs that the U.S. and Iran really are getting closer to a peace agreement?
Well, I think one credible signal.
Listen to how people have to, like, how the tea leaves they have to read to parse out what's going on. This is crazy. Like, they can't listen to our politicians because they just spewing bullshit. Like, they actually have to look at what's happening.
Are actually proceeding is this massive airstrike that Israel carried out on Beirut just now. Whenever you're getting closer to an agreement, you usually tend to see the Israeli military ramp up its violence. So sometimes the Israeli military is extraordinarily violent without any cause or any peace agreement, being worked on. But oftentimes it is an indication. Secondly, the complete failure of this Project Freedom. And in his Truth Social, he said he's pausing Project Freedom, which was just such a funny turn of phrase to hear from an American president. It's like, Project Freedom on hold. And the Pentagon's statement the other day, I guess it was Tuesday, where they said, yeah, so, Dubai was struck, the UAE was hit 3 times, some ships were hit, there were some other attacks, but none of it rose to the level of a violation of the ceasefire. And so the combination of those things really suggested pretty powerfully that the U.S. was running out of options, Project Freedom, all of this other luster that they were trying, but also very much does not want to return to a full-scale kind of kinetic war.
Yeah, you can tell.
Couple that with
they don't want to do that.
Israel looking to get away with what it can in Lebanon. Now, the reports out of Israel are that the U.S. coordinated with Israel on this attack on Beirut, which might be a way of the U.S. kind of testing whether or not they can strike an agreement with the Iranians and still attack Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that could be an additional kind of indicator that they do actually have some genuine optimism that they're getting closer to an agreement. So for those kind of structural, real reasons, I think that there's cause to think, because if it's not true that they're getting closer to an agreement, then what? Like, so that if the U.S. doesn't want to return to full-scale war, really the only thing left for them would be then to just kind of walk away and just slow and leave sanctions on and just kind of slowly like ease back out of the Persian Gulf and then out of the region in general, which is something that a lot of Joe Kent and others have actually said, like, of all the bad options, that's like the least bad option. Just like slink quietly away like Homer into the bush. Um, but that leaves, a lot of things unresolved, and there are holes in that problem too. So that leaves kind of reaching some sort of agreement. Um, and what I would expect is them to do something similar to what they did in Gaza, where they do a phased agreement and then they just renege on all the other elements of it.
Right. Yeah, just to give some context for our listeners and viewers. So, ever since the beginning of the ceasefire, Iran has insisted that it's a full regional ceasefire that covers Lebanon, covers Israel's military campaign in Lebanon. And we had every indication when the ceasefire was first announced by, I think, the Pakistani prime minister, that the U.S. agreed that it covered Lebanon. But shortly after that, Israel massively escalated their campaign in Lebanon, threatening the ceasefire. And so I take your point that is itself, the fact that they had the strike in Beirut, I think they say they were targeting this elite Hezbollah commander. The fact that they did that at this time suggests that it's kind of a reason for optimism, but of course it's also kind of a reason for pessimism, because maybe they're doing that because they think they can obstruct this apparent diplomatic progress, which I think probably leads to a question that you had, Harry.
Yeah, I wanted to focus a little bit on this Iranian proposal to end the war, which is what they want to do now. Not just an extended ceasefire agreement, but a comprehensive agreement to end the war completely. It was delivered via Pakistani mediators, and the details of it were reported by Tasneem news agency, I think a couple days ago. Among the demands, they want the whole conflict resolved within 30.
I mean, honestly, this Trump administration, they're making us look so bad. They're damaging our reputation, like, in a big way. Just so shameful. Such a scumbag.
Days. They want the U.S. to lift its naval blockade. They want sanctions relief and the release of Iran's frozen assets. They want the withdrawal of U.S. forces from areas surrounding Iran, which might not be so difficult now because most of the U.S. military assets in the region are now obliterated or destroyed. That's a consequence of the war. They want non-aggression guarantees and, as Andrew just said, an end to Israel's military campaign in Lebanon. Now, Iran's foreign ministry has said that their proposal is focused solely on ending the war and that nuclear talks are off the table at this stage. But several outlets, including Al Jazeera, had reported that Iran would negotiate this 15-year moratorium on their right to enrich uranium. Iran's Fars News actually disputed that report. They said that this 15-year moratorium was part of a previous U.S. offer, which Iran ultimately rejected. Is it, from your understanding, and I should say Dropsite News is in contact with at least one senior Iranian official, is Iran willing to give up or pause its right to enrich uranium, perhaps in exchange for sanctions relief?
Why should
Yes,
they?
I mean they have said as much. I believe the number that they came back with was maybe a 5-year moratorium and an offer, kind of not to clear the rubble off of the entrance, and to for an agreed upon period of time, not kind of access the highly enriched uranium. That's been part of their posture. But yes, some of the bad reporting has come where elements of offers made by the United States have been flipped and called offers by the Iranians. And so, but yeah, there is an agreement in principle.
Another video about,
but they're kind of going back and forth on
really interesting,
the amount of time that they would agree to something like that. I think, and this is just me speculating it, they understand that the Trump administration only has what, 2.5 years, 3.5 years left. I can't keep it. Is it 2.5 years left? And could be replaced by a Vance or a Rubio administration, obviously, or whatever else, but could also just be gone. More importantly, it seems to me what the Iranians are looking for is a genuine kind of commitment that the war is over and won't be restarted, and a commitment that flows out of pain that the Israelis and Americans felt, and a sense that, like, the stove is hot and they don't want to touch it again. In other words, they don't want to rely on the word of the Americans. Like, they don't want. We have shown repeatedly, after ripping up, walking away from the JCPOA and then attacking them twice, while literally engaged in peace negotiations, we've shown that those commitments aren't really serious. What they want is some type of sense that the U.S. it just isn't going to do it again because they don't see it in their interest. And I think they're starting to see that by the fact that there have been these kind of provocations over the last several days, and the U.S. seems pretty clear that they don't want to restart the war at this point. Because it feels like, I'm curious for your take on this. Like, it feels like finally the Iranian promises are breaking through. Like, leading up to the war, we were reporting. You guys saw this. They were very clear. I think the Iranians even wrote a letter to the UN that just specified explicitly what they were going to do if they were unilaterally attacked. And then they went ahead and did exactly that.
And you got to take your hat off to Iran.
Maybe they do
played their hand perfectly.
We are safe from getting attacked for a while.
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, some people toward the beginning of the war were saying that Iran's goal was to survive, that if they survive, they win. But that wasn't quite right. I think their goal was to impose costs sufficient to ensure the U.S. and Israel don't do this again. And they have imposed those costs. I think it's important to note that actually Trump was getting some fairly good advice, reportedly. I mean, it's kind of hard to distinguish because so many people in the administration are doing ass covering and saying they knew all along that there were risks involved here, like, you know, J.D. Vance, even Marco Rubio. But it did seem even at the time that Dan Kane was saying, oh, they might close the Strait of Hormuz and they will try to ignite a regional war. So it's a question of whether Trump himself has absorbed this lesson, I think. You know, the uranium point is interesting because I've been saying in the past couple of weeks that my sense was that Iran really was willing to agree to some kind of moratorium, potentially as part of a comprehensive agreement, in part because we have degraded their, you know, nuclear enrichment program. So there might be some kind of de facto moratorium anyway. But what's weird to me now is that Trump is now obsessed with this idea of moving highly enriched uranium from Iran specifically to the United States, which seems like another potential poison pill. I mean, I'm speculating now, but I've seen reports on this subject in which an Israeli official will say, Trump has assured us that he's going to get the highly enriched uranium. And I wonder if they're planting that in his head as a new kind of poison pill now that the moratorium is an actual possible thing that might happen. And kind of relatedly, you know, we talked to a lot of people on the right who say that Israel pushed Trump into this war. We had Joe Kenton, and obviously that's his general perspective. That's a general perspective of a lot of people who are like anti-war conservatives. And I always suspect that it's at least partly motivated reasoning, and partly they don't want to criticize Trump directly. You see this in general, and it's another kind of manifestation of that. I'm just wondering, you as someone who's more on the progressive left, what is your take on that general story that Trump did this war almost unwillingly at the behest of Israel, on Israel's behalf, as a result of Israeli pressure?
Well, yeah, I don't have any reason to worry about criticizing Trump, but I think that analysis is generally accurate. I think part of him has always has had a bug about Iran. I think that's true. You know, but absent Israeli pressure, I don't see him attacking Iran. Like in a world where that pressure doesn't exist, where does he get where does he even come up with that? I think that the New York Times reporting that Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan did has not been contradicted at all and is dead on. And if you go through that piece, you know, in February you've got Netanyahu coming to the Oval Office and then coming to the Situation Room, giving this, you know, hour-plus long presentation with the Mossad and the IDF guys behind him on the screen, and you have most of Trump's advisors, neutral or opposed, with Rubio even calling it BS. You know, the CIA coming back and saying most of these goals simply can't be achieved, and Trump says, "Well, I'm going to do it anyway." So where would the pressure on Trump, like, would he have just on his own with no advisors wanting to do it, overruled them all and just gone to war with Iran if he wasn't being pushed by Israel? Like, how does that even happen? Just like, you know, one difference between this administration and Trump 1 is that Trump 1, he had a lot more people around him willing to like push back against his ideas and argue with him, and they could argue him out of a lot of this stuff. Whereas the current group that's around him seems much more willing to say, I don't think this is a great idea, Chief, but you know, you have my support. And that's basically what J.D. Vance told him, according to that Times article. Like, I don't like this, but you know, if you do it, I'll support you. And you go big if you're going to do it. So, but yeah, I think and also I think that's one reason Rubio came out and said that the timing of this was because Israel was attacking, whether we were attacking or not. Learning later that Rubio called the Israeli reasoning BS gives real color to why Rubio, who's a, you know, pretty disciplined, you know, speaker out on the stump and out in press conferences, he's not Trump, you know. So why would he say that? Well, now we know he thought it was BS, and so wanted it out there. I think that how much pressure there had been. So yeah, I'm even a little confused as to why it's so controversial. In fact, to suggest that, obviously it doesn't let Trump off the hook. Like, you're still your own moral actor with your own agency.
Yeah, that's a point that I've made to people who argue against the Israeli pressure thesis. Is like, it's actually a very stinking criticism coming from like an America First conservative. Like, Trump launched a war for Israel. That's not a compliment. That's not,
Disgusting.
No, that's
trying to
worse.
excuse him.
It would
Right.
it would be better if Trump genuinely believed that it was in the American people's interest to launch this war and did it on his own, but with the support of Israel or whatever. But like, yeah, that's an almost better way to break your campaign promise.
I want to move now, if we could, to Lebanon. Actually, John Mearsheimer, among others, have been arguing that a negotiated settlement is unlikely anytime soon, mainly because of Israel and mainly because of their campaign in Lebanon. Iran, as we mentioned, has made a ceasefire in Lebanon a condition for ending the conflict altogether, and they've said that since the start, or at least since one of the first weeks of the conflict. The Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz had said at the beginning of March that Israel would impose what he called the Gaza model on southern Lebanon. And really, all the images that we've seen so far reveal that that's exactly what they're doing. The Israeli soldiers and the civilian volunteers who are demolishing homes there with complete U.S. backing. There are Israeli airstrikes that killed at least 8 people in southern and eastern Lebanon today, I believe. 17 people were killed yesterday, possibly more. Can you talk about Israel's daily massacres in Lebanon, what the purpose is of that campaign, and how important to a ceasefire in Lebanon is to Iran's conditions for a broader end to the Iran war?
Yeah, and we had put up some stats on the Dropsite News Twitter feed today
Dropsite
about
is the middle
extent
guy's
of
side project.
the slaughter that has been unabated amid the ceasefire.
Ryan
Truly
Grimm,
kind of incredible. I mean, certainly the bombing and the
You
killing
guys
has
should
been
check
at
it
a
out.
reduced.
That and Breaking Points, I really like that show. It's like a more mature version of the Young Turks, but it's actually they have a conservative on one side and a liberal on the other. Like they always have one of each. And he's the guy in the middle is on the show a lot. Like they swap out. There's like Emily Jashinsky, Sagar. He's this Muslim guy with the black frames and crystal ball. The chick that's usually on with the Muslim guy. And this Dropsite News, though, they get information that nobody gets, that we wouldn't get if they weren't a thing. Like I don't know how the guy gets some of the, like they have great sources and they have they know citizens or somehow they know sources inside of Iran or Iran, so they get a lot of information that nobody else has access to
compared to before the ceasefire. But
they got
nobody
an X account
would consider what's going on there a ceasefire. More than 100 medics have been targeted and killed, like not accidentally struck as part of collateral damage from another strike, but like they announced
this is crazy
that Hezbollah was using ambulances to travel around in, and that they were going to be attacking ambulances, and subsequently then have been killing medics at an absolutely extraordinary rate. And not that their arguments really deserve to be even debunked, but if you think about it, the main way that they have been killing medics is through these double tap, triple tap, and sometimes quadruple tap strikes. And that's where you, as your listeners I'm sure know, you strike a building, strike a home, you wait for the medics to show up, and then you strike those medics. And then oftentimes you wait for more medics to come and you hit them too. If they were Hezbollah fighters sneaking into an ambulance, what are they doing showing up at a site of destruction where they're rescuing people from underneath the rubble? Like those are, in other words, those are by definition medical workers,
right?
Like they're showing up,
like they're double tapping the medical workers and saying, "Oh yeah, they were Hamas." Well then why did they show up and start pulling the people out of rubble? That doesn't make sense. Like, and if they are Hezbollah, they're actually, I mean, by definition, if you show up, to help people, you're a medical worker. Like, even if they're not showing up to do terrorism, they're showing up to try and save people's lives.
To an emergency and pulling people out of the rubble. So in case there's anybody listening who gave some kind of credence to this idea that actually they really are going after fighters and the fighters are hiding in ambulances, that just think about that one for a second. That deconstructs the entire rationale for it.
You guys saw that, I think, what is his name? Sweeney or Swin. I think his name is Sweeney, is an English report journalist that was in Lebanon. The dude almost got just blown up on camera. He was doing a piece at a bridge that was struck by Israel, and literally he heard it coming, jumped out of the way, and boom, this fucking missile landed 5 feet behind him. They had gotten permission to go there. The Israelis gave them permission and then struck them. And what's crazy is the guy even said, he's like, the only reason we that should have killed us. It didn't kill them because they were on a collapsed bridge, and the missile went through the bridge. It didn't explode on the pavement of the bridge. It punched through the fucking bridge and blew up underneath it. That's the only reason that the guy survived and got it all on video. It's like, it's fucking incredible.
What's actually happening is they're trying to make conditions in southern Lebanon unlivable, uninhabitable, like Gaza. And so that's why they're hitting schools, clinics, hospitals, utilities, the things that civilian life requires, and also homes. We did a story about how people who've been displaced, which is millions at this point, have been chipping in. Like, so a whole town will chip in and buy for something like $350 these like high res satellite images. But they're very expensive, and you only can get like one for this significant amount of money. So everyone then pools their resources, buys this one photo, and then everybody zooms in to see if their home has been destroyed.
Yeah, just like people did after that LA fire, those that Palos Verdes or LA fire, whatever the hell it was. That's what people were doing then too, because they couldn't get into the fire area. Like, that's crazy though. And these Palestinians, they have to pool their money just to, like, that's crazy, man, because they can't go in there. They'll be fucking murdered.
And for the most part, the answers have been yes. Like, as you said, the destruction has been just overwhelming, awesome. Going after journalists at a rapid pace as well. And meanwhile, facing their own serious problems from Hezbollah, clearly learning from the Ukraine-Russia war.
Love it.
And, you know, they now can do these kind of fiber optic cable,
that shit's crazy,
first-person drone attacks that the Israelis can't jam, you know, because it blows my mind. Like,
have any of you guys seen that yet? Like the drones with the fiber optic cable? I've seen a picture of Ukraine where they were fighting. It looked like a fucking spider web over a huge city because they've flown so many of those drones. There's fiber optic cable everywhere. It looks like cobwebs over a city. That's how many. I mean, it's like, whoa, that's kind of scary to my mind. Like, you know, that's just, every one of those drones kills like 5 people.
That's bizarre. They literally have a cable attached to them as they're flying.
They go miles.
Mm-hmm.
They go miles with this cable behind them. And the learning curve, you can see Hezbollah getting better.
Good
and
for
you
them.
saw this happen with Russia and Ukraine as well. At first, they're kind of like itchy on the trigger finger, and the drones are flying all over the place. But by now they're smooth, and they're you know, casually kind of floating overhead, looking for the right target, timing, and hitting. And that's really gonna change, because if Hezbollah's within 10 miles of you, like, if you do a quote unquote buffer zone,
they can literally fly a drone with a fiber optic cable trailing it for 10 miles. That blows my mind. Like, how is that possible? I don't know. It just kind of beggars the mind there, I guess, you know. Although I guess if it's light enough, the cable, you know, it's going to drape to the ground. So it's only going to be, you know, I suppose it's possible.
People at the front lines of that buffer zone, and you need a new buffer zone. And it's the logic of just endless expansion.
Yeah. So I'll just switching the topic up. I mentioned that I want to talk about these Iranian Lego videos. I mean, they are basically war propaganda. I tend to use that term loosely. America has also released a lot of war propaganda videos, but interestingly, of a much lower quality and with much less potential for going viral than these Iranian ones, including this Lego genre. Can you talk a bit, and I'm sure the listeners have seen them and know what I'm talking about, but can you talk a bit about this guy that you talked to alongside your colleague at Dropsite News, and who's making these? Are they related to the government at all, or who are these people?
No, so this is there's a bunch of different groups that are making these now. The first ones to really take hold were by this company in Iran called Explosive Media. And so, yeah, we interviewed one of the guys from that team. He said that they're an average of 25 years old. So you can imagine they're in Tehran. Like, these are the types of folks that the Israelis and the American neocons have told us like are itching for regime change.
Yeah.
And in the past have been, produced content that was critical of the government. Like they have criticisms of the government. Um, we talked about that, and they said, but now, like right now, it's not the time for that. Like right now, we're getting bombed. Right now, we're having our entire civilization be destroyed, be threatened with destruction. And the only connection that they have with the government is that they basically got whitelisted, such that which allows them to communicate, with the outside world and allows them to have better access to internet. For the most part, if you're able to interview, say, a professor at like the University of Tehran or something.
I have another one. I don't really want to hear about the fucking Lego videos. This one's pretty legit.
So there is this map that I want to show you. This is actually from November.
Israel, they put out a lot of propaganda and everything. Oh, everything's hunky-dory in Israel. Nah, it ain't. They're struggling.
2011, when the United Nations held a big vote about Palestine, and we'll get to what that was in a second. These are the countries that backed Israel in voting no, and these countries abstained, which was basically the same thing. What you were looking at here is the pro-Israel world as of 2011, mostly Western countries and small nations that depend on them. These are the governments that arm Israel's military, that support it diplomatically, that shield it from international pressure. And to understand how far that support went, it helps to look at what that 2011 UN vote of the map was actually for. This is a UN agency called UNESCO. That name stands for Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and they do like events and educational grants. It's all very benign and boring. The Palestinian government asked to join it. And from the UN's perspective, yeah, no big deal. The UN resolution that established Israel back in 1947 also called for an independent Arab state in Palestine. So, according to the UN, Palestine is a state just as much as Israel. It should be allowed to join this nice cultural agency. But Israel opposed this because they did not want anything that legitimized the idea of Palestine as a state. And these 65 countries sided with Israel. That's how far they went for them. But that was 2011. Check out what one of those blue countries is up to today.
Oh, I see.
This is Italy's prime minister, Giorgia Meloni.
Italy has...
Those drones have a spool of fiber optic cable on them. That sounds like what you guys are saying. And as it moves away from the guy controlling it, the cable's being spooled off of it. So it's losing weight as it moves forward. That makes sense. Because I was thinking the operator had like a spool with him and they're pulling the cable. But no, that doesn't make any sense, actually, to do it that way. No, that's genius, actually, to put the spool on the drone. That way it can just, it's nothing, there's no drag on it.
Criticized Israeli attacks peacekeepers there.
In light of the current situation, the government has decided to suspend the automatic renewal of the defense agreement with Israel.
This is a huge pivot, and this kind of thing has been happening a lot. Israel's backers, that network of countries that have been supporting it for decades, they've been kind of turning on it, one by one, often in small ways, but it is adding up. And today, we're going to look at what all of that is adding up to. We're going to ask what this means for Israel, and what happens when the international support it's long counted on to do everything that it does starts to look like it could really go away. So I'm going to give away the ending slightly here and tell you that Israel has actually been quietly preparing for years now a plan for what to do if and when it loses the international support it relies on. We'll also look at why this is happening now and what it means that it is. But we'll begin by simply going through country by country on the map what is changing here. Starting early 2024, the height of Israel's war in Gaza. Experts were calling it a genocide. The International Criminal Court was preparing charges for war crimes. And that April, the UN did what it does. It held a symbolic, non-binding vote. This one, on admission of new members, that said, in theory, Palestine was qualified for membership. In other words, to be recognized as a state. The US had vetoed that, though, so all this actually changed was where the powerless Palestinian representative was seated in the UN assembly room. Still, this was a chance for countries to take a side. And a lot of them that had long sided with Israel used this vote to signal that that was kind of over. Look at that map again. We're going to label all of the countries that went from voting with Israel back in 2011 to voting against it in 2024. Australia and New Zealand, important Western countries. Japan and South Korea, major economies.
It's one of those things where they put wire, they coil wire, or they coil string or wire, and they put it into a can, like a plastic jar with a hole in the top, and it furls out perfectly. They use that shit for throw line and tree work. The sandbag you throw up in the tree to set your rope. It's the same thing. It's dragless. Like you don't have to have moving parts. and it comes out without any, you don't have to pull on it at all, hardly.
Usually vote with the West, a bunch of countries in Africa and the Caribbean that rely on Western support, a few other big ones, but also, and this was a big deal, a bunch of Europe, Denmark, Poland, Portugal, Estonia, plus a couple more. So look, Denmark and Poland, I know, not exactly the biggest world powers, but Europe collectively is Israel's biggest trading partner. It's their biggest source of tourists. It's their second biggest supplier of weapons after the United States. Europe is what expands the pro-Israel sphere from a niche American thing into a broad Western coalition. So any chip in that, it's a big deal. And then 2026, the Iran war hits.
The U.S. and Israel have launched strikes and a major military operation targeting Iran.
The Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, is dead.
For the first time in history, Iranian officials say the country has closed the Strait of Hormuz following joint strikes from the U.S. and Israel.
Which didn't just offend sensibilities and values in Europe, it really messed up their economies.
The country is facing widespread disruption as fuel protests continue, with major roads blocked and shortages beginning to emerge.
So pretty soon you got stuff like this.
Il est évident qu'il nous faut pouvoir hausser le ton dans les sanctions.
This is Belgium's foreign minister.
Suspension à tout le moins partielle de l'accord d'association entre Israël et l'Union européenne.
He is talking about trade sanctions on Israel, the kind of thing you do to a hostile rogue state. He even went on to say that Belgium would support a total EU boycott. Here, let's zoom in on Europe, because it's not just Belgium. Spain, Ireland, and Slovenia are also calling for the EU to sanction Israel. Ukraine threatened sanctions too, over Israel importing grain from its Russian-occupied territory. Israel stopped the stolen grain import, but the threat is still hanging. Also remember, we saw that Italy suspended a defense cooperation deal. But the really big turn has been France. France recently closed its airspace to Israeli flights carrying weapon shipments. It's a symbolic step, sure, but a big enough warding shot that Israel, in response, halted all arms purchases from France. This is a real loss for Israel. French weapons make up a ton of Israel's imports. Like, check this out. You can see it here. This is the EU data for every European arms sale. And if you look at the top arms sales to Israel, a ton of them are from France. Like, all the biggest ones. You almost wonder if Israel did this to preempt France from doing it first. You know, you can't break up with me, I break up with you. Anyway, the point is, this is effectively a quasi-self-imposed French arms embargo on Israel, which joins a Spanish arms embargo imposed a few months earlier. So yeah, this is Europe on Israel today. You can see it's a pretty meaningful pivot. But now we got to talk about the US.
The time is now for us to end all U.S. military aid to the extremist Netanyahu government.
This is Senator Bernie Sanders recently introducing a resolution that would block all U.S. arms sales to Israel. It did not pass, but it was closer than you might guess, 40 to 59.
On this vote, the yeas are 40, the nays 59. The motion is not agreed to.
And like the UN votes or the EU threats, this was about sending a signal. 40 U.S. senators voted for an arms embargo. That is a message that almost half of the American
correspondent. Come on.
Political system is ready to really turn on Israel. And that's not just a signal to Israel, which, let's face it, seems unlikely to change behavior. It's a signal to all of these other countries that global pro-Israel coalition is getting closer and closer to breaking apart. So it's time to ask why. Why now? The simplest explanation would be that this is all in reaction to Gaza and to the Iran war. But I think the truth is that those things are just catalysts, pushing along a change that's been building for a long time now. This is a foreign policy article warning Israel that it lost Europe. But what's interesting about this is that it's from 2012. One of the things they were reacting to was that 2011 UN vote we looked at before. What looks to us now like it had been a big pro-Israel wave in Europe, at the time, it looked like Europe turning on Israel. And this makes more sense if we rewind a few years more to 2008. This is German leader Angela Merkel speaking to Israel's parliament. And she said basically, we will support you forever because of the Holocaust.
Das heißt,
so
die Sicherheit Israels ist für mich als deutsche Bundeskanzlerin.
Drift into memory, the less kind of cultural and political scaffolding there is for that relationship to exist. Especially as Israel does more and more stuff in the present that upsets or hurts or offends its international sponsors. Which is why support for Israel is strongest among older people, whose view of it is rooted in that past. Like, here, look at this. This is Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader, speaking to AIPAC in 2018.
Of course, we say it's our land. The Torah says it. But they don't believe in the Torah.
Yeah, so that don't cut no ice
the
with
reason
us.
There is not peace. They invent other reasons, but they do not believe in a Jewish state. And that is why we in America must stand strong with Israel.
It's you who do not believe in a Palestinian state, homeboy.
Through thick and thin.
Schumer is obviously coming to this through a kind of Jewish ethno-nationalism. That's why he specifically supports Israel. But he's drawing on, and for a long time got that support because of, a wider sense across Western countries that Israel is quote-unquote like us. But that feeling, that perception, has been steadily eroding, often slowly, but steadily, for as long as I have been writing and reporting on Israel and Palestine. Every year, people learn more about Israel's occupation, the settlements, the treatment of Israeli Arabs. And it gets harder and harder to recognize the Israel that we see with our eyes to the Israel that we had been told was this foothold of Western democratic values. And big moments like Gaza or Iran tend to generate a lot of intention that accelerates that shift. This is a recent NBC poll of Americans by age. The green bars measure positive views on Israel, and the yellow bars are negative views. When NBC first ran this back in 2023, older Americans had overwhelmingly positive views of Israel, people my age were more mixed, and younger people were a bit more negative than positive. Fast forward to today, young Americans have turned on Israel 5-1. My generation, it's 2-1 negative on Israel. Older adults are almost split, and only the oldest are like solidly pro-Israel. That is how you get 40 US senators voting for an arms embargo on a country that not that long ago they'd have all felt obligated to pledge their undying support to. Public opinion has shifted really quickly. That is part of why you see this. World governments that had always supported Israel suddenly starting to pivot. But there are some big holdouts, especially Germany, the UK, and the US. Things are changing within each of those countries, like we talked about in the US, but their leaders are resisting pressure to break with Israel. I know it might feel difficult to imagine a real, meaningful Western break with Israel, but, relative to just 10 or 15 years ago, which is not that long in geopolitical terms, it is already sort of happening in ways that recently would have felt impossible. Hey guys, just wanted to quickly pause to say, if you want to learn more about Israel, why it is the way it is, what it's doing, its place in the world, all of that, okay. Back to the video. And Israeli leaders know this, which is why they have a whole plan to prepare for the day that the West breaks with them for real. I actually did a bunch of reporting on this plan a few years ago, and what I found is that Israel had quietly achieved a real degree of autonomy from the US. This had a few components. It made peace with a bunch of the countries it used to need American protection from, like Egypt and Saudi Arabia. It learned how to build big weapon systems domestically.
Peace with them?
So
we fucking bribed them so that they won't.
While, yeah, it's happy to take American and European exports, it can replace a lot of them if needed. Israeli voters have also embraced more hardline nationalism, so they no longer really pressure their leaders to keep foreign powers happy the way they used to. And in some ways, they even want their leaders to defy those foreign powers by doing things like expanding settlements. And look, yes, it is still true that Israel has a ton to gain from American and European weapons, funding, and support. Those play a big role in empowering Israel's war. My point is that Israel has built up its autonomy so that holding on to that support is no longer existential for them, which frees them up to defy those countries, even the United States. Which is how you get moments like Trump last year tweeting at Israel to not bomb Iran, which of course they still did. Or this year, Trump tweeting at Israel that it was prohibited from bombing Lebanon, which, you guessed it, they immediately did anyway. But I mentioned at the start of this video that Israel's plan to survive a breakup with the West is only sort of working. One component in particular. I wrote about it back in that article. And it's that Israel has been cultivating new allies, right-wing, illiberal democracies that actually admire the very actions that had been pushing away its more traditional allies. An Israeli analyst named Dagya Scheimlin, who told me about this, called it kind of mockingly the other friends policy. Let me show you on that map. The big ones are India, Brazil, and Hungary, plus a couple others. Countries whose leaders aren't drawn to Israel because of the past, but because of what it is today, as a symbol of unapologetic militarism and ethno-nationalism. And this worked pretty well for a while. Hungary especially was Israel's best friend in the EU, vetoing all sorts of trade restrictions or sanctions that Europe might have otherwise imposed. But after a couple years, it kind of started to fall apart. Israel's buddy in Brazil lost re-election and got sentenced to jail time for a failed coup attempt. And its ally in Hungary lost power too, actually just a few weeks into the Iran war. And the new guy in power there has already said his government would arrest Netanyahu on war crimes charges if he visited Hungary. Better look at that map again. Brazil out, Hungary out. That Israeli diplomatic resurgence is looking pretty short-lived. So what does all this mean? Look, when I started reporting on Israel and its place in the world back in 2010 or 2011, it was honestly unthinkable to me that the Western pro-Israel world would ever cool to it to the extent that it already has. And I know that to a lot of you, especially if you're on the younger side, that probably sounds crazy. Because if you look around you, it looks like the West supports Israel as unreservedly as it ever has. You know, the US just started an entire open-ended global economy destroying war with Iran basically as a favor to Israel. Western weapons are funding Israel's wars in Gaza and Lebanon. I'm not blind. I see all this. But I am telling you, if you take a step back, if you look at the bigger picture, the kind of longer timeline here, that support is starting to look kind of tenuous. We are not talking about a wide and deep pro-Israel consensus across the Western world anymore. We are talking about a handful of countries that are increasingly isolated in backing Israel, led by leaders who are acting in defiance of their publics, their political parties, even their own core supporters. I'm sure you've heard that Hemingway quote, "Change happens slowly and then all at once." We are in the happen slowly part right now, but it feels like that all at once is coming up fast. We might look back 5-10 years from now and feel that actually it was as of this moment that it was already here.
Video phones. literally. I'm gonna say I searched for it and put it up in another window.
It's a sound that's come to define modern warfare.
Whoa.
The first-person view, or FPV drone.
It has a big-ass RPG strapped to the underside. Are you kidding me?
As much a part of the battlefield today as any other weaponry. In fact, drones are now responsible for up to 80% of casualties in the war in Ukraine. They are being used by conventional militaries and armed groups around the world alike, including Hezbollah in Lebanon. But these drones are a little different. They use a thin spool of fiber optic cable, typically mounted underneath the drone. They can't be jammed and give operators high-definition, real-time control. The cable can extend up to 60 kilometers. They fly at low altitudes, allowing them to bypass electronic defenses and radar. And the cost, anywhere up to just $600 for a combat-ready drone that can be purchased online. Hezbollah may increasingly deploy the craft as it wages asymmetric warfare on Israeli forces.
Hezbollah has identified a key vulnerability, fiber optic guided drones, which is resulting in casualties among soldiers.
This shows just how widespread fiber optic drone use is in Ukraine, the conflict becoming a testing ground for battlefield innovation. They're cheap, versatile, and effective. And Hezbollah believes they could be a game changer in its fight against a much larger, better equipped, and more advanced enemy. Mike Lappel, Al Jazeera.
Zionism. Yeah, there's another one that's pretty. The one I watched, it showed the Ukraine, like how the shit was just covered in like fiber optic cables, and they showed a group of Israelis getting killed by the drone. Like it flew right down into this group standing around a tank, and blew like 6 IDF soldiers to Kingdom Come. Just like damn, and they didn't even know it was coming. Like they were just standing there, which is kind of crazy because those things are loud as shit.
Can't be spoofed and may have no reliable counter.
Right, Mina, $600 bucks.
Has a cheap wire-guided drone just exposed a major weakness in Israel's military?
I like these. I like these videos showing the blowing up IDF soldiers.
It was supposed to be a routine operation in southern Lebanon. Then a drone appeared. On April 26th, in the small Lebanese village of A Tayyiba, an explosive drone struck a group of Israeli soldiers. Sergeant Aidan Fox, an armored fighter, was killed. 6 others were wounded, 4 of them seriously. And as the evacuation began, as a rescue helicopter sat on the ground and medics rushed to the injured, Hezbollah launched a second drone. It exploded directly over the evacuation force, just meters from the helicopter. Hezbollah has increasingly relied on explosive drones as a central weapon, rather than rockets and anti-tank missiles, and that the group now possesses fiber optic guided drones that are resistant to the Israeli army's electronic warfare and detection systems. That last part is what keeps military planners up at night. Here is how it works. Hezbollah operates 2 types of explosive drones. The first uses radio frequency signals to navigate, and Israel has been fairly effective at jamming and shooting those down. The second type is different and far more dangerous. It runs on a fiber optic cable, a physical wire that trails behind the drone as it flies. Because it is guided by light signals through a wire, rather than radio waves through the air, electronic jamming simply does not work.
It's using
the
light,
IDF's
bitch.
entire arsenal of electronic warfare tools, systems that Israel has spent decades developing and billions of dollars perfecting, are rendered useless against it. These drones can fly up to 15 kilometers from their operators and carry between 1 and 6 kilograms of explosives. They resemble those deployed in the Russia-Ukraine war, and Hezbollah demonstrates considerable operational proficiency in their use. This is not a group fumbling with new technology. These are trained operatives who have studied the Ukrainian battlefield, absorbed its lessons, and applied them with precision. These explosive drones are the most serious threat currently facing military forces. Hezbollah repeatedly deploys drones in a manner that suggests operational confidence on the ground. The paper concluded that a consistent pattern is emerging. This is no longer an emerging threat, but a present and persistent danger, and possibly the most complex challenge on the Northern Front, given the lack of an effective countermeasure so far. No effective countermeasure? The uncomfortable question now circulating inside the Israeli military is not just how to stop these drones. It is why the army was not better prepared to begin with. Channel 12 reported significant internal criticism, stating that the Israeli army failed to adequately prioritize the threat in a timely manner, despite clear and documented lessons from the war in Ukraine, where both Russian and Ukrainian forces have used fiber optic drones extensively since 2023. The assessment that such capabilities could migrate to the Northern Front appears to have come too late. There is another detail that stings. Ukraine itself offered assistance to Israel in dealing with unmanned aerial vehicles during the war. That offer, according to Channel 12, was not taken up. Whether it was bureaucratic delay, strategic miscalculation, or simply not seeing the urgency, the result is the same. Israeli soldiers are now facing a weapon for which there is no reliable answer. The IDF is not standing still. The military is currently testing new detection and interception systems that do not depend on electronic warfare, systems designed from the ground up to counter fiber optic guidance. Channel 12 called it a technological arms race, while also acknowledging that no country currently possesses a complete solution to the drone threat. A battlefield blurred, where ambulances don't just carry the wounded, but allegedly conceal weapons and fighters. The Israeli military says Hezbollah has been using ambulances and medical teams to transport weapons and operatives across Lebanon, disguising movement and exploiting protected medical infrastructure. Footage released by the military on April 24th revealed. According to the IDF, this practice has been systematic and repeated, undermining the protections granted to medical facilities under international law.
This footage constitutes evidence of Hezbollah's use of medical vehicles to exploit their protected status. The IDF will continue to operate in accordance with international law regarding medical facilities, despite Hezbollah's decision to exploit them for terrorist purposes in blatant violation of international law.
The military says its warnings to civilians in southern Lebanon ahead of strikes have made it harder for Hezbollah fighters to operate unnoticed, pushing them to increasingly rely on ambulances to move between locations. In one incident, Golani Brigade troops searching the municipality of Kontara reportedly discovered an ambulance being used to conceal weapons, including explosive devices, mortar shells, magazines, and a grenade. In a separate encounter last month, troops from the 7th Brigade identified a Hezbollah operative near an ambulance carrying an RPG anti-tank launcher. The individual opened fire and was subsequently killed.
Apparently, of some IDF soldiers getting mopped up. Damn. Look at that, they're running. Oh, no, stop. Damn. Doodles. Scumbags. Look at them, man. They're just raping these towns, this other country. You know, war is hell. Damn, a $500 drone taking out a tank.
That is the explosive claim coming out of southern Lebanon, where Hezbollah has released dramatic footage of what it says is a direct hit on one of Israel's most advanced tanks. The incident reportedly took place around April 24 in the town of Kantara, near the Israel-Lebanon border, an area witnessing intense ground operations. And the visuals are now going viral. The video begins with first-person drone footage flying low over rubble-filled terrain and damaged buildings. Moments later, the camera locks on to a Merkava tank positioned near destroyed structures. A targeting reticle appears. The drone accelerates, and within seconds, it slams straight into the top of the tank, cutting through its anti-drone cage.
Wow.
The footage then switches angles. A second drone captures what happens next.
Jesus,
a massive explosion. A bright fireball erupts, followed by thick black smoke rising into the sky. The tank appears engulfed in flames. This secondary blast is believed to be an ammunition cook-off, a catastrophic failure that often indicates total destruction. Hezbollah and allied accounts are calling this a major symbolic victory, framing it as a clear example of asymmetric warfare, a cheap, precise drone taking down one of the most...
You know, Israel, they don't like fighting wars where they actually have to be in danger. They just like murdering children and women, raping. You know, and they get discouraged. You know, they don't have a big population, and it makes their people want to stop, you know, when their kids are dying. And they've been run out of Lebanon. They were run out of Lebanon in like the 80s because they were losing, you know, it turned into a meat grinder and it was unsustainable. Like Israel, they barked up the wrong tree, man. Like they don't have the ability to do this kind of stuff. And like, they don't have enough people. They don't have the fucking military know-how. They're just a bunch of fucking money changers, a bunch of coin clippers. What do they know about waging war?
Heavily protected tanks in the world. The Merkava Mark IV is equipped with advanced armor and Israel's Trophy Active Protection System designed to intercept incoming threats. But experts say these systems may struggle against fast, low-flying FPV drones with minimal signatures, especially those guided through fiber optic cables that cannot be jammed easily. This is not an isolated case. There has been a growing pattern of drone attacks targeting Israeli armored vehicles in recent months. Earlier strikes caused limited damage, but this one, if verified, shows complete destruction. Israeli forces have acknowledged the rising drone threat, but often contest the scale of damage shown in such videos. And that raises a key point. Independent verification remains difficult in active conflict zones. Hezbollah's footage is often edited and released for maximum propaganda impact. Still, the visuals highlight a larger shift. Modern warfare is changing rapidly, where low-cost technology can challenge even the most advanced military hardware. And the battlefield is no longer just about firepower. It is about adaptability, because in today's war zones, even the most powerful machines are not invincible.
Another video that shows how they make these things and how they control them.
Subscribe.
These things are fucking high tech, man.
Russia has lost $125 billion of military equipment since the beginning of the conflict.
Wow.
They have also lost more than 325,000 soldiers and a total of around 1.2 million casualties. The Ukrainians delivered a big blow with a small tool, FPV drones. These inexpensive drones, costing between $300 and $500, can be purchased online and are easy to assemble. Strapped with explosives, they have destroyed advanced Russian tanks that are worth millions of dollars.
You know, that's just a regular FPV drone. Like, I looked into building one. I got a 3D printer, and I was thinking about making one. You can buy those parts on Alibaba and shit. Like, they're not, you can buy them off the shelf. Crazy.
Inexpensive drones with 3D printed parts and various payloads tailored to battlefield requirements are revolutionizing modern warfare. In this video, with the help of 3D animation, we'll take a look at how these drones work and the types of payloads they carry. We'll see how the drone operators target the tank's weak points to destroy it in one hit. We'll also look at Ukraine's most feared vampire drone, which only attacks at night.
Use that triple-aught buckshot.
And the Russians call it Baba Yaga. Finally, we'll explore two unusual techniques that utilize a pair of scissors and a fishing pole attached to a drone to counter FPV drone attacks.
Wow.
Welcome to modern drone warfare.
That's crazy, yeah. Yeah, they're cheap, especially if you have a 3D printer.
Immediately after Russia attacked Ukraine, the Ukrainian Aerorozvidka unit quickly sprang into action. Their responsibilities included conducting aerial reconnaissance, maintaining situational awareness, providing cybersecurity, and engaging in drone warfare. In the early days of the conflict, they used Chinese DJI drones, but when China stopped selling DJI drones to Ukraine, the unit decided to build its own FPV drones. FPV stands for first-person view, where a drone is controlled from the pilot's viewpoint, letting you experience drone flying as if you are the pilot. These small FPV drones typically weigh only 4.4 pounds and can fly at speeds of up to 93 miles per hour. Let's take a look at all the parts of the drone. The frame is typically made of carbon fiber, a lightweight yet strong material. However, to reduce costs, it can also be 3D printed using plastic. The top and bottom frame sections are separated by spacers to fit the electronics. The frame has 4 arms attached to it, and arm guards are provided under each arm. 4 powerful brushless motors with propellers are attached to the arms.
Yeah,
the drone
I was
uses
thinking that just a second ago too, Anglo-Saxon. Why? Ukraine's been using these drones for years, and why didn't we, if we were going to attack Iran, why didn't we have a drone swarms and shit? This doesn't make any sense, man. Like, it's total bullshit. Like, our leaders, man, it's all about paying their buddies big contracts. They didn't want to switch to drones. They wanted to keep paying $30 million for stupid ass Predator drones. It's ridiculous.
Lithium polymer battery for power. It has a high-definition camera in the front. At the center, there's the electronics section. This part is called a stack. The stack consists of 2 components, a flight controller and an electronic speed controller. The flight controller is the brain of the drone, responsible for flight stabilization, controlling the speed of the motors, and interpreting commands from the pilot. It also supports advanced features, such as GPS navigation, return to home, altitude hold, and autonomous flight modes when equipped with compatible sensors. Just below the flight controller, you'll find the electronic speed controller board, commonly referred to as the ESC board. Drones usually carry 4 bulky ESCs for each motor. Nowadays, all the ESCs are integrated into a single board, making it more compact and lightweight. In the rear section of the drone, there is the receiver and video transmitter unit. It receives commands from the pilot and transmits high-quality video back to the pilot. It comes with a 2.4 GHz receiver antenna and a 5.8 GHz video transmission antenna. Ukrainian drone makers have now switched to higher frequencies, ranging from 6.7 to 7.2 GHz, to evade Russian jammers. If the receiver and video transmitter are not available as a single unit, then they must be used as individual components. Finally, a capacitor is placed at the bottom of the stack to stabilize power delivery and protect sensitive electronics from voltage spikes and electrical noise. This is FPV goggles. It receives the video feed transmitted by the drone in real time, allowing the pilot to see exactly what the drone sees, as if they were flying inside it. It enhances control, precision, and situational awareness while flying at high speeds.
So cool.
To control the drone, a wireless transmitter is required. A drone transmitter, which can be easily found online, typically resembles this design. It has gimbals on either side to control the throttle, yaw, pitch, and rolling motion. It also includes switches for other functions, such as a grenade release mechanism. This is one of Russia's advanced main battle tanks, the T-90A. This tank will be the target for our drones. This drone is carrying an anti-tank weapon. It is the warhead section of a rocket-propelled grenade, commonly known as an RPG. It is strapped to the drone with zip ties. Let's look at the weak points of the T-98 tank. Like most tanks, this tank is also vulnerable to attacks from above, which is typically the least protected part of the tank. The rear end of this tank is also one of its weak points, because that's where its massive V92S2 12-cylinder, 1,000 horsepower diesel engine is placed. Hitting the tank here would immobilize it. An immobilized tank is an easy target, which is why the drone pilots always try to hit the engine section of a moving tank. Let's see the pilot's point of view. Let's examine the weakest point of nearly all Russian tanks. This is the turret, where the commander and the gunner sit. Inside the turret, there is an autoloader mechanism that automatically loads and fires the ammunition. If you're interested in how this autoloader functions, I have created a detailed video about it. It is available on my channel. If you are enjoying this video, click the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when I upload a new video. Below the autoloader, there's the ammunition cassette, where all the ammunition and the charges are stored. A single hit to the ammunition cassette can trigger a catastrophic explosion, destroying the tank instantly. To achieve this, the drone pilots aim at the base of the turret.
Crazy. How can a drone take out an armored tank, like a 50-ton tank?
When the hit is successful, the entire turret section flies off. This phenomenon is known as the jack-in-the-box effect, or turret toss.
They just hit it in just the right spot and it throws the damn turret out of the... Wow, that is so badass, man. Wow.
This explains why many online images show destroyed Russian tanks with separated turret sections.
Incredible.
When the tank's engine is damaged and the vehicle becomes immobilized, the commander and the gunner exit through the hatches, leaving them open. This is when the grenade-dropping drones are used.
Damn!
This is a hand grenade, with a safety pin and a lever. To simplify the design, Ukrainian forces replaced the lever with an X-shaped pin, making it easier for the drone to drop it on the target. This is a simple grenade release mechanism that is 3D printed from plastic. It is attached to the bottom of the drone. This bomb has a fully 3D printed outer body, while its internal components are modified parts from a rifle-launched grenade. It has a basic impact fuse that triggers an explosion upon impact. These two drones are now fully equipped and ready to damage the internal parts of the immobilized tank. The two drones fly directly over the open hatches and drop the payloads before moving away, while the tank gets destroyed from the inside. Other variants of 3D printed bombs with simple release mechanisms are also used to accomplish.
That's funny you mentioned that, J-Boss. That is almost like a video game, like knocking the turret off of the tank. That's like, yeah, it's like a final boss trick, you know, to beat the final boss. That's wild, man. Just like a video game. It's
this
weird.
Task. The main disadvantage of these wireless drones is that they are susceptible to interference or jamming. To prevent this, the Ukrainian drone makers came up with a brilliant idea: wire-guided drones. They decided to build drones that are controlled through fiber optic wires which are impossible to jam. This is a wire-guided drone. A small 3D printed drum-like container, along with the warhead section of an RPG, is strapped to the drone with zip ties.
An RPG, that's what I thought it was.
This drum contains a spool of fiber optic cable. This cable can be between 3 miles and 12.4 miles long.
12.4 miles.
The other end connects to a communication module. The module contains 2 wires. One wire connects to the transmitter, which sends a signal to control the drone, and the other wire connects to the pilot's FPV goggles, or a screen, to receive video feed from the drone. With this unjammable wire-guided drone, the pilot attacks the same weak points of the tank that we saw before.
Man, that's so dope.
The benefits of fiber optic drones include immunity to jamming and electronic warfare, reduced power requirements for communication, and the ability to provide secure, high-quality, real-time video.
Israel get snubbed.
The disadvantages are that they have...
I like to see, like, Israel getting their ass kicked by $500 drones. Fuck yeah.
Limited range, payload capacity, and maneuverability. The fiber optic cable can get tangled or even broken. They also create a significant amount of plastic pollution.
Yeah, that is weird.
For example, in Ukraine, the city of Lyman is completely covered by a dense spider web of fiber optic cables.
Get that shit, man.
Another disadvantage is that
everywhere.
these drones cannot fly at high altitudes. So the Russians found a very simple way to deal with wire-guided drones. Russian soldiers hide behind trees, allowing the drone to fly past them. They sneak up behind the drone with a pair of scissors, and then cut the fiber optic cable. The drone immediately loses control, crashes to the ground, and explodes.
How clever.
But there is one drone that Russians truly fear, the vampire drone. It is called the vampire drone because it usually attacks at night. The Russians call it Baba Yaga. It comes with 4, 6, and 8 rotors, and it originated from a heavy agricultural octocopter drone. It features an infrared camera for nighttime operations, and includes 2 powerful batteries, which increase its range up to 24.85 miles. It can carry payloads of up to 33 pounds. This drone functions both as a heavy bomber, carrying mortar-sized munitions, and as a mothership for smaller drones.
Mothership?
It carries anti-jamming equipment and directional antennas to support smaller FPV drones. Their way of operating is simple. First, small FPV drones locate Russian soldiers hiding in a bunker or trench. Then the Baba Yaga moves directly over the target at night and drops the munitions, clearing out the way for Ukrainian troops. Baba Yaga has carried out more than 2.5 million combat missions and was awarded the most effective strike system on the battlefield in 2025. It ranks first in enemy personnel casualties, number of strikes by a multi-order bomber, and the number of orders in the bomber segment. Russia also sends FPV drones into Ukraine, so the Ukrainians came up with a simple way to deal with it. They attach a fishing pole to an FPV drone and start chasing the Russian drones with it. When it gets close to the enemy drone, the pilot aims and tries to hit the propeller with the fishing pole.
Wow.
When hit, the enemy drone immediately loses control and falls to the ground. This method is only effective against slow-moving multi-order FPV drones. Ukraine has manufactured over 6.8 million FPV drones so far. Their drone industry is now capable of producing 3 million to 7.5 million drones per year.
That's insane. Bro, and you know who's making money hand over fist? China. They're getting rich off of this shit. Alibaba.
Ukraine is currently leading the world in drone warfare. They have become so good at it that they have deployed their experts in the Middle Eastern nations, such as Jordan, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, to help them defend against Iranian Shahid drones, the same drones Russia used against Ukraine. Ukraine, being a small nation, has demonstrated to the world the significance of drones on the battlefield. The skies of the battlefield will soon be filled with advanced artificial intelligence-driven autonomous drones.
That's scary, though. They're
Thank you for
AI
watching.
driven. So we're not even going to be getting killed by people, or you know, soldiers aren't even going to be getting killed by each other. They're going to all be getting butchered by computers. Like, that's fucking scary, man. Thank God I don't have to live much longer in this fucking era. Crazy. Yeah, they are. They're cheap and they're easily, you know, built, off the shelf parts. Yeah, I think I'm gonna I'm gonna cut it there for the night, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed the stream. Damn shame Nick didn't come on. But yeah, I am gonna stream that Steven Crowder stream on Tuesday. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you, Mackenzie. Did subscriptions. We'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.